It is so crazy to realize I haven't talked to you guys since last year. All right, all jokes aside, I know I haven't talked to you guys in a few days, and that's because, one, baseball got really boring. Nothing's happened, and also, two, I got a little bit sick, so I just decided to take a few days off. I hope that you can understand. I'm sorry. But also, if you've been watching these videos for the last few years, you would know that there's kind of an inside joke. As soon as I post a video, if you wait an hour, something crazy happens. So maybe by posting, the hot stove gets hot again. In today's recap, we're going to break down a lot of small moves and also the fact that Pete Alonso, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Jingle All the Way, he's not Turbo Man, the toy that everyone wants. He's Booster, the toy that no one wants. So we're going to break that down, as well as the fact that Roki Sasaki, the superstar Japanese free agent, he has met with 20 teams. Not really. He's met with 7 teams, and he told those teams, I don't want a single player in the room. I don't want Ohtani. I don't want Darvish in the room. I want to be by myself, which is crazy. Again, I know this is not the biggest recap ever, but we do have quite a few moves to talk about. Hopefully, this ignites something. And by the way, guys, don't forget that recap is brought to you by SeatGeek and Underdog Fantasy. I had to get that in there. Use code Fuzzy. Before we get into the updates on Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman, Anthony Santander, and Roki Sasaki, there was a trade between the Marlins and the Cubs that I do want to talk about. These recaps, I don't want them to just be about big teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers. I got to talk about the Marlins, the Nationals, and the White Sox today. The Marlins and the Cubs both have some players that used to be former top 100 prospects. They've been really bad at the big league level, so they said, hey, we'll trade former top 100 prospect for former top 100 prospect and see if the fresh start fixes them. The Marlins picked up 26-year-old Matt Mervis, who has an awful strikeout problem and just simply making contact with the baseball, but that's in Major League Baseball. He is 2 years removed from having one of the best minor league seasons we have ever seen. Back in 2022 in the minor league system for the Cubs, he hit .310 with 40 doubles and 36 home runs. Again, that's one of the best power seasons we've ever seen, and he was pretty good in 2023, also 2024, but he's kind of a 4A player. He hasn't been able to figure it out at the big league level. That's what you call it, a 4A player. Too good for AAA, but not good enough for the big leagues. That's kind of what's happening to a Brett Beatty of the Mets. The Marlins are crossing their fingers that a fresh start for Mervis might actually unlock him, just like the Cubs are thinking with Vidal Brujan. And if you've played MLB The Show, you know exactly who Vidal Brujan is. He played like Mickey Mantle. He was that good. He's also 26 years old. He has very limited power. He's not a great defender at all, but he has shown flashes of being a near 60 stolen base guy in the minor league system. He plays a couple different positions. So again, this is a cross your fingers. It's a low risk, high ceiling, and if it doesn't work out, you just cut them. Almost forgot to mention that the Cubs picked up 38-year-old, or at least soon-to-be 38-year-old lefty Caleb Thielbar. He is a southpaw strikeout machine. He has an 11 strikeouts per 9 since 2020. He got lit up bad in 2024 out of nowhere. He went from being a 3 ERA guy to a 5.5 ERA guy. We just talked about that. He's almost 38 years old, so this is a very low risk, high reward. Again, you can just cut him if he doesn't work out, but the Cubs have had one of the most confusing off seasons I've seen in quite some time, because it's good that they traded for Kyle Tucker, but they haven't replaced anyone at third base unless they really believe in Matt Shaw after they traded away Isaac Paredes. Their pitching depth isn't that great. I still like Steele. I like Imanaga, but Matthew Boyd is very much a wild card, and same with Jamison Taillon. You don't know which version of those guys you're going to get. And the same goes for their potential 5-starter, Javier Assad. He's either going to be really good or really terrible. Staying with Chicago, we're going to go down to the south side now. The White Sox made 2 different moves. The second one was a trade with the Phillies, which I actually think could be pretty good for the White Sox, but their first one, Josh Rojas, he signed a 1-year deal. Josh Rojas is a super utility veteran who back in the day for the Diamondbacks was actually a doubles machine. He had 32 doubles and a near 350 on base back in 2021. He did have a 350 on base the next year, but he's been a bum the last 2 seasons, at least if we're talking about in the batter's box. He has an 85 OPS plus the last 2 seasons, but somehow he fixed his defense. He went from a butcher, we've used this term before, he had bricks for hands, to all of a sudden having 6 outs above average in 2023 and then 9 outs above average in 2024. So if he can shed some defensive wisdom to some of the other butchers on the White Sox and show them that, hey, you can be really bad, but if you work on your game, you can improve and actually fix the defense. Maybe all they want is that, just some veteran leadership in the clubhouse. The White Sox also picked up Tyler Gilbert from the Phillies. Now, this is in a trade, and if the name Tyler Gilbert sounds familiar, he also played with the Diamondbacks in 2021. He threw a no-hitter in his first ever start, and he put up a 3.1 ERA. But yeah, that rookie success did not follow him in the next few seasons. You had an awful 2022 and another bad season in 2023. Then the Phillies, after picking him up from the Reds, they unlocked him as a reliever in the minor league system for the Phillies. Hit a 2.2 ERA and an 11.7 strikeouts per nine. Again, it was AAA. Take it with a grain of salt, but we saw what the White Sox did with Mike Soroka, a fledgling starting pitcher who can't strike anyone out, all of a sudden turn into a strikeout machine out the pen. Maybe it's the same for Tyler Gilbert. This is a good pickup in my opinion. He's 31 years old, so a lot of low risk, high reward stuff going on today. And by the way, real quick, in return for Tyler Gilbert, the Phillies are trading for 23-year-old Aaron Colmes. He was an 8th rounder from this past draft. He's a really weird pitcher because he's an absolute maniac on the mound. That's fun. He reminds me a lot of James Karinchak, but James would throw 97 to 98 miles an hour. Aaron Colmes, he tops out at like 91, 92. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense that he strikes a lot of guys out, but at the same time, you're thinking maybe he has pinpoint command. He has a walk issue as well, so he doesn't throw hard, he walks a lot of guys, but somehow he strikes out a lot of guys as well. So if the Phillies can get that command in check, I mean, they do that, he's going to be insane. The Nationals have made 2 separate moves. They are bringing back Josh Bell, so I'm wondering if he's going to be a platoon with Nathaniel Lowe, or maybe he's going to be a full-time DH, because Nathaniel Lowe, he is a stud defender. I would expect him to get a good amount of at-bats, right? Either way, 32-year-old Josh Bell is getting a 1-year contract worth $6 million. The Nationals spent $20 million in total. Bell, a couple years ago for the Nationals, was a monster. He had 27 home runs and a near 130 OPS plus in 2021. He got even better to begin 2022. He put up a 301 batting average with a 152 OPS plus to begin 2022. He then got shipped to the Padres, and I'm sorry, this is a trigger warning for Padres fans, but he was probably the worst hitter in baseball after being shipped out. He goes to the Guardians, stinks it up. He then gets traded to the Marlins, where he picks up the pace yet again. He stinks for the Marlins the next year in the first half, gets traded to the Diamondbacks, finds his swing all over again. He had a 121 OPS plus while hitting 280. In my opinion, Josh Bell is the streakiest hitter in all of Major League Baseball, maybe of my life. He's insane, then he's the worst hitter in baseball. Back to being insane to being the worst again. The same kind of goes for this next guy, Trevor Williams, a starting pitcher. So if you have no idea who Trevor Williams is, he was insane last year. But before that, he had a 4.5 ERA his first 620-ish innings in the big leagues. And out of nowhere, he turns in a 3.1 ERA his next 120-ish innings with the Mets. So the Mets, they fixed him. He gets rewarded with a pretty good contract with the Nationals in 2023. Then he puts up a 5.5 ERA. So he's back to being a bum. Then he finds the magic again. In 2024, he has a 2 ERA over 13 starts. So because of that, he gets a 2-year contract worth $14 million. I'm not saying the Nationals are going to be world beaters or anything, but they should be better. I know the Williams is kind of a re-sign, but adding Josh Bell and Nathaniel Lowe, I like it. Maybe Cade Cavalli stays healthy and Josiah Gray comes back in the second half. The Nationals, they're not going to win 95 games, but they could be good. So what's going on with my man Pete Alonso? Polar Bear Pete, what is going on with him? Well, according to all of the reporters across the game of baseball, the #1 bugaboo right now involving Pete Alonso is the fact that he wants more years than any team is willing to give. He wants a 5-6 year contract. The reports are that teams might go with a higher AAV, kind of 3 years, $90 million, which, by the way, I think that would set a record for first baseman AAV, but they do not want to give Pete more than that. Pete just turned 30 years old, and if you've grown up a baseball fan, you would know that back in the day, we used to say that 27 to 29 years old was the prime of a baseball player. That's kind of been extended. Baseball players have just gotten more talented. Maybe Pete being 30 isn't as much of a problem as it used to be, but then again, maybe it might be, and that's why teams just don't want to go past 3 or 4 years. So that's the Pete Alonso update. Let's talk about the final 3 players super quick. Anthony Santander, the reports are that the Blue Jays, they really want him. They might be giving him almost $100 million. Alex Bregman, he wants $200 million, or maybe Scott Boras is forcing him to hold out as long as physically possible to ensure an overpay by the Red Sox or the Yankees or some other team. So Bregman, he is still a free agent. He wants $200 million. He already rejected $160 from the Astros. Roki Sasaki, 20 teams are interested, but he's only met with 7 teams in person. Those teams being the Padres, Giants, Rangers, Cubs, Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets. Who is going to get Roki Sasaki? If you're right and you let me know in the comments, we might do a little special giveaway for you in the future.